So last night's debates on CBS, quick takeaways, general overview. Bernie Sanders is the front runner, and they all tried to go after the king. They needed to take him down. So the whole debate was about all of them getting together and putting knives in Bernie Sanders. And they wasted no time. As soon as the debates took off, they were already making comments about, oh, you're working with Russia. Vladimir Putin wants you to win. I think Mike Bloomberg is the one who started with that.
I think that Donald Trump thinks it would be better if he's president. I do not think so. Vladimir Putin thinks that Donald Trump should be president of the United States, and that's why Russia is helping you get elected, so you'll lose to him.
Yeah, so that was ridiculous. I mean, we've seen in countless polls that if Bernie runs against Trump, he actually beats him by the widest margin. So whatever. We knew that they would do this. I talked about this in my video yesterday, that they would bring up both smears, that they would talk about Russia allegedly aiding Bernie Sanders' campaign, which is complete nonsense. This is the whole Russiagate conspiracy brought back. And on top of it, that they would bring up the Fidel Castro communism stuff, which they did, of course, as predicted. I told you, notice how every single time, right before a debate, there's some controversy that comes out. Last time it was Elizabeth Warren with her sexism allegations. They always use whatever they can, whatever's in the news, and then bring it up in the debates to make Bernie Sanders look bad, even though it's complete nonsense. And the whole crowd was bought out by pro-Bloomberg people. I mean, you could tell. Bernie Sanders even made a post-debate comment about how expensive the tickets to the debates were. So you had no working class people in the crowd. It was only rich people.
That we saw where it seemed like you were almost arguing with the crowd or debating with the crowd at one point. What was that about?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Do you know how much money it costs to get a ticket down below?
How much?
I read that it costs $1,750. So to get a ticket to the debate, you have to be fairly wealthy. Most working people that I know don't spend $1,700 to get a ticket to a debate, and that's problematic. But, people, that's what the DNC did.
They were booing Bernie Sanders every time he spoke. Did you guys catch that? Like, the crowd was very hostile, unusually hostile. At first, it kind of caught Bernie Sanders off guard. I think he did a bit better the second time around when they were audibly booing him. He was like, oh, really?
That Cuba made progress on education. Yes, I think, really? Really?
Yes,
literacy
because there's no comparing those two concepts.
Mayor Bloomberg has a solid and strong and enthusiastic base of support. Problem is, they're all billionaires. Now, if you look... On the other hand...
Please, for argument's sake, you guys know that I love Bernie, and he's the only viable candidate on the stage. But can I please, for contrast's sake, show you how Donald Trump responded to boos in the crowd during the 2016 Republican primary debates? Just look at the difference right here. Take a look.
From an elderly woman.
Let me talk. Quiet.
How tough is it?
A lot of times, that's all of his donors and special interests out there. So, that's what it is. And by the way, let me just tell you, we needed tickets. You can't get them. You know who has the tickets I'm talking about to the television audience? Donors, special interests, the people that are putting up the money. So it is. The RNC told us we have all donors in the audience, and the reason they're not loving me, the reason they're not loving me is I don't want their money. I'm going to do the right thing for the American public. I don't want their money. I don't need their money. And I'm the only one up here that can say that.
Quiet. Absolutely steamrolled them. I mean, looking back at the 2016 race now, it's so clear why he won. You had nothing on stage except establishment politics, career politicians, all of them corporate hacks and war hawks. These are people who've been in the Republican Party their entire lives and been nothing but neoconservative, pro-war, pro-establishment. And this guy comes along and he calls them out. It's like, the whole crowd, all of you, you're the donors. You're the campaign contributors. You're the people buying the election. And he creates this contrast, right? I mean, we all know Donald Trump is a fraud, obviously. He does nothing but serve the establishment while in power, giving them tax cuts, keeping the military-industrial complex going, et cetera, et cetera. We know this. Let's not kid ourselves here. However, in the debate performance, if you isolate the debate performances, he was very good with showmanship, creating a contrast between himself and the other people on stage. And honestly, Bernie Sanders could use a little bit of that. It's one thing to say that, oh, we have to change the system and, we need to give the American people a voice and not the corporations. But you also need to say that about the people on stage. He does call out Pete Buttigieg. He did it in the last debates. I told you that was his best performance yet. Why? Because he did precisely that. Because he called out Pete Buttigieg's private donors, the 40 plus billionaire donors. But he needs to be better at it. He needs to create a sharper contrast. Look, man, we can love Bernie Sanders while also being constructive in our criticism, right? So this is just a constructive criticism. Because look, man, Bernie Sanders is being soft and they're already booing him, right? So go ahead and tell him the goddamn truth, man. Give him the full thing, Bernie. Don't hold back. You don't need to hold back. Just go ahead, man. Call him out. Say that they're smearing you. Say that they are bots. Say that they are nothing but tools of the establishment. Call them out for what they are, man. By creating that contrast, you are really going to help people make up their minds. They have to make a choice then. They're like, okay, I'm either on the side of the establishment or I'm with this guy. And this guy, I think I like him because he actually wants us to win. He doesn't want the corporations to win. So I think he could use a little bit more of that Trump 2016 flavor in his debating, But the booing in the crowd wasn't the only thing. You also had several moments, almost every time Bernie Sanders spoke, you had this rat, Pete Buttigieg, talking over him. I swear to God, there was one question. He talked the whole time over Bernie Sanders. Like, what the hell are you doing? Bernie has 1 minute and 15 to respond. He talked the whole thing over him.
Pete is some kind of radical communist idea. Do we think raising the minimum wage to a living wage? Do we think building the millions of units of affordable housing that we need? Do we think raising taxes on billionaires?
What does he think he's doing? He thinks that, if I speak over Bernie Sanders, I'm going to assert dominance. People are going to think I'm an alpha male. No, they're not. You're a rat. Get the hell off the stage and stop talking over the senator. All right. And I'm really glad that Bernie Sanders didn't give in. He just kept talking and kept talking. But he could have done what Trump did. I mean, like, quiet. The way Trump silenced Jeb Bush. Oh, Lord. If Bernie had done that to Pete Buttigieg, he would have gone up 20% in any poll then. Directly. Okay? I wish he would have done that to Buttigieg. That would have been the sweetest thing ever. Because it's really funny watching Trump do that to Jeb Bush, but seeing Bernie do that to Pete Buttigieg, oh, Lord, that would have been even sweeter. Even sweeter. Seriously. Like, just turning to him and be like, quiet. That would have been amazing. But yeah, Pete Buttigieg really tried to go hard after Bernie Sanders. Mike Bloomberg as well. And Elizabeth Warren, she was quite mild compared to what we've seen before. I felt that she was trying to replicate her attacks on Bloomberg, which worked really well in her favor during the last debates. They made her look good, propped her up. That was good. She took care of Bloomberg, essentially. She was trying to replicate that a bit here. She didn't really make any kind of scathing remarks against Bernie Sanders. We've had worse. But yeah, you had Amy Klobuchar and others on stage again bringing up this nonsense about Medicare for all, about how it costs too much. I'm getting so sick of debunking this. I can't imagine how sick Bernie Sanders is. We talked about this exact study that Bernie Sanders is referring to, the new Yale study. I mentioned it before. It says clearly you save tons of money and lives. And this is a fact. I mean, we have countless of studies now. It's not just Yale, right? We know this already from before. But we already know Amy Klobuchar takes money from the healthcare industry. I've also covered that in the past before. That's why she doesn't want Medicare for all, because it's bad for her donors, right? She takes money from big pharma more than the private healthcare industry, if I remember correctly. But, they're one and the same at the end of the day. So, of course, she's not going to advocate for Medicare for all, but at least she's an honest centrist, so to speak, right? Not like Pete Buttigieg, who pretends that, oh yeah, I want to give everyone healthcare, man, of course. And then behind the scenes, he's actually taking money. He's being bankrolled by the same people who are opposed to Medicare for all. At the end of the day, that debate was very difficult to watch. I could not stand Pete Buttigieg constantly talking over Bernie Sanders. All of them were shouting over each other. It was a mess. What I want to see is Bernie Sanders steamroll them. I want to see a Trump-like performance from 2016. It's not about Trump. It's not about his values or who he is as a person. It's about how he steamrolled the rest of the field. I want that kind of dominance from Bernie Sanders. He's not channeling that same energy. Yes, we know he's doing great. We know. And some of you may disagree. You may say that, okay, well, since he's already doing great the way he is now, what's the point of him being more negative, right? That might hurt him, actually. Maybe he should just keep doing what he's doing and it's going to work out. Okay, I guess that makes some kind of sense. But at the same time, I think that by being more direct, more bold, he will create a starker contrast and really let people make their minds up. I think that's a good thing. I think his performance last time, the contrast was more real. This time around, not so much. But again, that's not 100% Bernie's fault. He's doing great in the primaries, and so they all tried to stab him in the back at once. This whole debate, the whole thing, the whole point was, let's all go after Bernie Sanders. That's what it was, okay? They took a shot at the king and they missed the wire. So to further echo that, they did a post-debate poll and Bernie Sanders came out on top.
So what we did was we talked to an audience of debate watchers across the nation, and first thing we asked them was, who impressed you? And tell us everybody who impressed you. And it was Bernie Sanders on top by a little bit. He's at 45%, and then Joe Biden just back of him. And Elizabeth Warren, Ed's looking over here, so I'll share this, and it's up on screen. Elizabeth Warren, and then Mayor Pete Buttigieg just back of them. So tightly bunched. Michael Bloomberg and Tom Steyer lower down there. That's a little bit reminiscent of the debate last time too. So the other thing though of note is that we asked people, okay, did the candidates spend more time drawing distinctions, or we said criticizing each other, or making the case to themselves? And look at that lopsided number, criticizing each other. And obviously for everybody who watched this, that was certainly a hallmark of the first part of this.
Yeah. And
so at the end of the day, you could say that Bernie Sanders emerged victorious because he didn't lose his status as the front runner. I don't think this debate hurt him in any way. Again, it wasn't the best debate, but it's not bad either. He didn't get humiliated. Nobody steamrolled him. It was okay, right? It was a mess, but we didn't come out any worse off than we were before. So that's a good thing. And by that logic, Bernie Sanders is still the front runner. Considering South Carolina, what's going to happen on the 29th, will Bernie Sanders win South Carolina? Do you think this debate affected it that much? I don't know, man. I think Joe Biden had a very good performance. I think if we're going to be fair, if we're being objective, this was his best performance so far. You know, usually what would happen is he would kind of lay in the background and try to avoid getting attacked by anyone else because his record is bad. But what happened here is he was joking a lot with the moderators. You know, there was a lot of fraternization right there, a lot of chit chat back and forth, making jokes. They were really gravitating towards him. He was being all classy and stuff, whatever. Yeah. And also he had some strong showing. He's like, hey, I didn't talk over your time. Let me use my time. And people were clapping, all this stuff.
Here's the deal. I'm not out of time. You spoke over time, and I'm going to talk. Here's the deal. Fact of the matter.
So he had a good show. This wasn't bad for Joe Biden. No, it wasn't. I think this was his strongest showing yet, if I'm being honest. And he already had a strong base of support in South Carolina. You know, if you look at the polls, out of all the polls, he's been doing the best in South Carolina. And where I think Bernie Sanders is going to have his strongest showing is on Super Tuesday. I'm more focused on that. Like, I don't expect him to win South Carolina. It's no biggie if he doesn't. I think he's going to come in second place, and that's not such a bad thing. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he wins it. I would be absolutely ecstatic if he won it. I hope I'm wrong. But like, being realistic, I think that's what might happen. And that's not the end of the world, right? What we need to focus on is Super Tuesday. Texas, California, I got a good feeling, man. I got a good feeling. But let's not get carried away. Again, this debate was awful. It was really difficult to watch. We had some tough debates before, man. You remember when there was like 10 candidates on stage? Oh, God, atrocious. We've had worse debates. And thank God, you know, Bernie Sanders didn't come out worse off than before. He's still the front runner, and he's going to maintain that status going forward. And we'll see what happens when people go to vote.